Good afternoon. My name is Alex Mortimer. I'm a director here at the Supply Chain Academy and CP Training Services Limited. I'm joined by my colleague Neil Roll, General Manager for CP Training and Supply Chain Academy. Neil, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Alex.
Great to have you here, and thank you for taking some time out of your busy day to take part in this podcast, The Need for Supply Chain Education. So Neil, give us a bit of background about yourself and your experience.
Well, basically I started in the logistics and transport industry before moving on to a general supply chain background. I worked 30 years as a distribution manager, operations manager, distribution center manager, culminating in logistics analyst, where I would be responsible for project management of warehouse, distribution and logistics activities throughout the UK and the Republic of Ireland.
Fantastic. So we're looking at the need for supply chain education. Why is thinking about supply chain as part of strategy crucial to business leaders?
Well, in my opinion, there's not a business in this country that can operate without some part or some element of the supply chain. Whether it manufactures goods, it moves goods, money or people, or sells an end product or service, it's all part of the supply chain. Therefore, business strategy must be directed to incorporate an element of supply chain management.
And in your opinion, have most supply chain professionals been on training courses?
My experience, it's not just my opinion, but it's my experience that most supply chain professionals grew up in the industry. They've developed from the operational background of maybe a logistics planner or a transport operative, and they've worked their way up to senior executive levels. Very few have actually incorporated any kind of formal learning or academic learning in their career. So I feel it's very important for these people in particular to be able to gain an understanding of the industry as a whole and not be pigeonholed in any one specific part of the industry.
Do you feel that these supply chain professionals are afraid of learning?
I don't see it as being afraid of learning. I see it as they've worked their whole background where an activity has to be done now, it's important to be done now, and they haven't had the time to be able to learn the subtleties of the academic learning and understand all the possible concepts and the theories behind what they actually do for a living. They haven't found it important. Now they've got to an executive level and they're all running businesses and they're basically leaders of industry. They're not just looking at the practicalities of the supply chain, they're looking at the strategic benefits of the supply chain and how to incorporate concepts and theories to make that supply chain more applicable to their industry.
What key learnings and techniques are needed by business leaders to navigate the current economic and political uncertainty?
Well, most businesses rely on some sort of demand management or demand planning. They incorporate within their supply chain process, whether it's a supply chain activity where you're planning your services for the next week, the next year, or the next 3 years. But what a lot of businesses don't do is they don't actually analyze the trends of their actual business performance, and they don't involve all the functions within their business. To do an in-depth analysis of a business, you have to incorporate sales, marketing, finance, research and development, and operations. They're all essential processes within the supply chain, and they all must be part of that demand analysis process.
How can Supply Chain Academy CP training help them?
Well, we can help them by understanding the relationship between each of those functions and activities, how they interknit, how they can actually benefit one another and form a collaborative relationship to be able to take the business as a whole forward. That brings me to another point within how we could help business leaders with the techniques, and that's we can help as the Supply Chain Academy to be able to identify the resources and capabilities of that business. For a business to know what strategy to use and how well they can develop within any particular market, they must know their own capabilities and the resources available to them. We, as a Supply Chain Academy, can turn their resources of not just their activities, functions and people, but everything that they actually do within a business and transform that into a capability that can help them maintain their present market share and grow their market share into other markets. Furthermore, in this world of increased competition, it's not just good enough for a business to be able to differentiate their product, become the leaders in their field because they have a different product and a different way of marketing and a different way of delivering it. There's a lot of businesses now. There's a lot of competition. This competition means that every business can do that. Every business has been able to differentiate their product. They've been able to bring in comparable products. As a supply chain industry now, what we're forced to do is look at the cost basis to supply our customers the most value for their money. Therefore, we as a Supply Chain Academy can once again help businesses identify how they can improve their inventory management, their transportation systems, their product life cycle management, and their techniques on sourcing and procurement. We can help identify how they can make them better and bring in best practice. One popular method of supply chain development is outsourcing a product. Now, to outsource your products or your services, you have to have a very good relationship with any of your suppliers. Not only the suppliers, they could be your third-party logistics providers. So you have to be able to build fantastic relationships where you can trust them and they can trust you. We, again, as a training provider, can supply knowledge of how to best promote that business relationship, how to build bridges, how to bring your business forward and discover techniques of how the best way to do that. And the ways we can help you understand and develop your supply chain networks. Your supply chain networks have probably been developed over time. We can help you identify whether they are robust, workable, changeable, and can be easily adapted to any situation. Furthermore, we can show you how to identify bottlenecks. Bottlenecks that will stop your production and stop your service to your customers. To help you do that, we not only devise methods of identifying best practice, we also help you with the realization of control mechanisms. Now, control mechanisms are not just there to be able to measure someone's performance. Control mechanisms are there to develop best practice. They highlight areas where your performance may not be up to scratch. We can help you benchmark against competitors, and we can help develop an awareness of how to take your business forward by identifying what you do as a business.
From your experience, Neil, working in the supply chain, what supply chain risks are there, and would you say training in supply chain supports to mitigate risk?
There's a lot of serious risk in the supply chain if the supply chain is not managed correctly. Again, one of the aspects of our training is identifying how the supply chain works and where you fit in it. I go to a lot of businesses, I see a lot of organizations, and I see that their supply chain activities have grown from their business practices maybe 15, 20 years ago. What they've done is they've developed practices that have been best for what they need to do. They've evolved and it works to make that business profitable. However, things have changed. The industry has changed. And as companies, we must adapt to survive. We find supply chain often is designed in the silo mentality. For example, you'll have a supply chain made up of procurement, inventory, manufacturing, warehousing, logistics, and retail, all siloed. all measured with their own metrics. However, when it breaks down, who has the problem? We all have the problem. The supplier has a problem because he's got nowhere to send his goods. The retailer has the problem because he can't sell the goods. The manufacturer can't make the goods, and the distributor can't distribute them. Therefore, whenever there's a risk through a supply chain, the risk is applied to all aspects of the supply chain. Therefore, you need to develop contingencies and ways to mitigate the risk based on the full supply chain, not just individual activities. We will help you discover and identify what those activities are that you need to mitigate. When you find you can't mitigate them, we will help you develop contingencies to tell you and aid you in your methods to improve your service once something has failed.
Which leads me nicely to my next question. For those companies that need to change their practice, what would you say to them? You've kind of just answered that question, but is there any further advice that you'd like to add?
Yes. In my opinion, most, as I alluded to earlier, most supply chain companies or organisations actually don't understand what a supply chain is. What we do as a training group is the first thing we do is let your people of every single functionality within your business, help them to understand what the supply chain is. We help them to coordinate activities, and we help them to be able to, if something goes wrong, help that other function out. We help you where you are currently sitting. We will give you all you need to know to be able to understand what you need to consider as part of the risk and where you need to be in the future. And we will identify all the ways that we can help you achieve your goals.
No, good stuff. Neil, you've recently joined the Academy, been here 6 months now.
Yes.
And you're working with me and Paul Stone, our MD, looking at all of our short courses, all of our master classes, and in every aspect of end-to-end supply chain, as well as our new supply chain degree apprenticeship in supply chain leadership professional. And you're helping develop those materials and training courses, and it's great to have you working with us. You're also giving a talk at the Institute of Directors, one of our partners, on the 18th of May in London. So more details on the Supply Chain Academy website under Thought Leadership Events. It's great that you're able to work with us and deliver that topic, because you've got a lot of expertise and knowledge to give to our contacts, our clients and our colleagues. Finally, could you give us your top 3 tips on best supply chain practice?
Certainly. The first tip I could pass on is know what your end customer or who your end customer is. Not your immediate customer, not your immediate internal to customer, but what does your final end customer want, and how best can you aid the whole supply chain to provide that service. If that end customer goes, you won't have a supply chain and you won't have a business to supply. To do this, you'll need to know your capabilities. You'll need to know how to do things, how you can do some things, and not only just an emergency, but also a way of identifying what you lack in your capabilities to be able to go out, find the training, find the expertise, and bring that back to the party so it'll help deliver your future plans.
Neil, thank you very much for joining me on this podcast.